dealing with the emotions of it is the other side of it. It's the inner journey that you're going through. And what I found was, even though everything looked great from the outside, and I looked very successful, behind the scenes, I was a total wreck. I mean, I was in and out of financial difficulties. I had two failed marriages. And just quite frankly, in everything that I was doing in my life at that time, I wasn't doing it nearly as well as I could have and should have been doing. It was like I was just on a dead sprint to get through to the next thing so that I didn't have to slow down or stop and think about the things that had happened with my family. And so a few years into the Senate, I unexpectedly was given the chance to meet with Glenn Egg, the guy who actually pulled the trigger to kill my parents and to shoot Leslie and me. It was a face-to-face meeting. And as soon as I found out that this meeting was actually going to happen, I remember feeling this incredible rage and anger. And it just surprised me so much because I'd always thought of myself as a happy person. I mean, back then at least, if you ran for office, you had to be likable. You know, now you just have to be angry. You got to be angry about something or be angry about everything. But back then, you had to be happy and a likable person. And to feel that anger and that rage and that bitterness was not something that I really expected. And by the time that the meeting was about to happen, I remember thinking my life finally is beginning to make some sense. This is why I went to law school. This is why I went into the military and learned these cool things and even became a senator, is because this meeting would never have happened had I not been a member of the Oklahoma Senate. And by that time, I was absolutely sure that one or the other of us wasn't going to walk out of that room, and I frankly did not care which one of us it was. I just wanted the pain to stop. And I sat down and I met with him, and I'm not going to, on this video, go into the details of it, but I can tell you that over the course of that hour and a half long conversation, more and more I began to realize that the turmoil in my life and the behind the scenes chaos was probably as a result of this anger and bitterness and rage that I was carrying around inside me, and that I needed to do something, that is what needed to stop. And so at the end of that meeting, I wound up doing something I never thought I would do or even be able to do, which was to forgive him. And it was one of the most dramatic things that's ever happened in my life, probably second only to the actual shootings. And that's not something I go around laying on people, is that they have to forgive. Everybody's journey is a little bit different. And that's one of the things that I learned from this is that healing is a journey for all of us, and it takes different amounts of time. And it's different. There are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences in my journey versus your journey versus the journey that others go through in trying to heal. I also learned that, when people say time heals all wounds, that's not necessarily true. What's needed is, it's what you do with that time. It's, are you filling it with good and positive experiences? Are you spending it around people that you love and care about? And are you building good memories? Because the more of those kinds of events and the more of those memories and the more of those relationships you can put between where you are now and the thing that happened in the past, those are like rays of hope that just shine down on us and that encourage us to keep taking that next step and the next step. I look frequently, actually, now look back on that night that we were shot, and I remember making the decision to get up off the floor that night. Didn't mean that I was necessarily going to succeed. I didn't know that my sister was going to come in and try to cut me loose. But I remember thinking, I could lay down right now and nobody would ever know. As far as they're concerned, I died of a gunshot wound. They would have no idea that I just gave up. And yet, looking back on it, when I got up off that floor, was it to live a life of misery and shame and failure? Or was it to live a life of happiness and success, whatever success that might mean, however that is defined, and to one day have my own family again? And so I believe that the reason I got up off that floor was because I believed those things were possible. Remember, a friend of mine used to say that to be really successful and to be happy in life, you need three things: someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. And I equate that closely with the notion that in the New Testament, where the scripture about faith, hope, and love, and they read that at almost every wedding that happens, and yet it's not just for weddings and marriages, it's for all of us. We need to have faith, we need to have hope, and we need to have love. And we also need to be able to take those steps. There is no reason why we can't live the life that we wanted. Maybe it may look differently than what we originally expected, and probably will. And the life that the God that made us intended for us to live, but also I look back and what kind of life would my parents want me to live? If they knew I was living in misery and anger and rage and failure, would that really have been what they had hoped for me and still hope for me? I believe they wanted me to live a life that was full. And so I owe them that, not to do everything that they would have necessarily wanted done, but to just be happy and to be successful and to have hope. And I believe that is how we find healing in anything that happens in our lives, but particularly as victims of a crime. I'm Brooks Douglas. Thank you for watching.